Here we go again, doing the wonderful chores of life. It is amazing to me how much time is wasted on such small, seemingly meaningless, routine things. But it's like, if you added up the amount of time that you spent in your life doing chores and just keeping up with housework and keeping up with the house and all that, like, it would probably be years of your life. Somebody said, and I'm probably going to butcher this because I don't have it immediately available in my mind, but they broke down the amount of time that we spend sleeping, and it was like some 20 odd years, assuming you live to be 100 or however old the study was based upon. And the idea was that you spend 20 years of your life in the grand scheme of things just sleeping. And that was like wild to me. It's like, ugh, that cannot be the case. And I know, like, there was a point in time where I was watching a lot of inspirational speeches, and Steve Harvey talked about that quite a bit, in that he was talking about one of the biggest things that he attributes to his success was not sleeping 8 to 10 hours every night. In fact, he averaged about 5. And just the fact that it was kind of a waste of time, more or less. And he gets a lot of backlash for that, because people are like, oh, well, you're saying that people shouldn't be well rested and they have to work themselves to the bone in order to achieve success. And I mean, like, to a degree, yeah, that's kind of like, you're not going to be able to accomplish something that the whole world can't accomplish unless you're doing something that the whole world can't do. So, like, if the whole world's like, oh my gosh, I can't operate off of 3 hours of sleep, and then Steve Harvey's like, I can, and obviously he's a very successful individual, then that's kind of a sign, like, yeah, there's a reason why the whole world cannot do these things, or are less capable of doing these things. It's because it takes something that they're either not willing to do, incapable of doing, or not willing to dedicate themselves to in order to accomplish it. It's been a hot minute, but there was a good period of time where I could function off of 5 hours of sleep, and it was no big deal. And I haven't really needed to have that kind of dedication in my life, so I've kind of gotten away from it. But it does make sense. There is a lot of just wasted time doing things that we widely accept as being acceptable things to do, whether it be chores or whether it be sleeping or whatever it is. And, like, for me, myself, I live a very structured life, in that I allow certain time allotments for certain tasks, and I don't go over those time allotments, and I try not to go under them either. But that has allowed me to make a pretty successful life for myself, where I'm able to accomplish the things that I want to do. And so, like, one thing that a lot of people have troubles relating to is my theory of waking hours, if you will. And so my waking hours on a day-to-day basis are Monday through Friday from 5 a.m. to about 11 p.m. And now it does not matter whether I'm working or not. Generally speaking, those are my waking hours throughout the week. Now, what does that mean for me? That means, obviously, that I'm awake from 5 to 11 every day. And, like, most people really enjoy day shift schedules. You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you do your thing, you go to bed, so on and so forth. But I have always slightly preferred the night shift over the day shift. And obviously it depends on the hours, but, like, so long as my hours worked do not modify my waking hours, then it's a preferred schedule for me. There's a good while there where I was working from 2 to 10:30, and it didn't change my waking hours at all, because I was still waking up at 5 and I was still going to bed at 11, but it shifted what time I worked from day to day. And so instead of working from 8 to 4:30, for example, I was working from 2 to 10. And what that did for me is it allowed me to spend my earliest morning time frames being completely productive for myself. And so essentially I would wake up first thing in the morning and I would knock out a small exercise routine, whether it be just some crunches or something around the house, or maybe a jog around the house. And then from there, I would go right into something creative, generally try and write on whatever my active project was for about an hour, and then I'd move to breakfast and then kind of divulge from there based upon whatever it was I was working on. But essentially, I had max productivity from the moment I woke up down to about noon or so when I started to get ready for work. I would start to get ready for work around noon, usually be ready for work around 12:30, and then be leaving for work around 1 o'clock. And so what that did for me is, like, most of the time when I'm working a day shift position, I wake up, go straight to work, come home, and then I kind of have to force myself to be productive. And it is a lot harder to force myself to be productive when I am when I've already worked an 8-hour shift versus when I'm waking up fresh for the day. And so, although I am still very productive as an individual working day shifts, I am much more productive as an individual working evenings. And the reason being is because, as I said, when I wake up in the morning and I'm doing my stuff, the stuff I need to do or the stuff I want to do, I am more inspired and more able or capable of doing those things. And so that is why I have grown to prefer that shift, because, like, present tense, I wake up and, like, I don't necessarily have to be at work until 8, and so I don't I still wake up at 5, but I have a good chunk of time in the morning. So I'll wake up, I'll usually watch some sort of cartoon that reminds me of being a child so that I can get my head in the right headspace for the day. And then I will eat breakfast, try and do a little bit of writing, and then head off to work at around 7. And then from there, I do my 8 hours of work, come home, dedicate my first hour immediately after coming home to writing something, whatever I'm working on, and then dinner from there. And then the next hour, usually from like 7 to 8 or so, I dedicate to like friends or social activities, which usually is just like gaming with friends online or whatever. And then after that hour, I usually have about an hour from 9 to 10 where I am writing or working on something creative, and then going to bed between the hours of 10 and 11. And so that's, generally speaking, what my schedule looks like now. And although, like I said, I'm still good about getting stuff done and doing what needs to be done, it's still not quite the same, because my mind is exhausted from work, my body is exhausted from work, and I'm just not as capable of doing the productive work that I want to do when I've just gotten off of an 8-hour schedule. Like, I'm not using that as an excuse, but it is a reality that we have to face. And I saw another quote online by The Rock talking about making time for the things that you are passionate for. And basically he was saying, like, if you have time to spend 8 hours a day at a dead-end job that you don't like and you're on somebody else's time, then you have time in your day to spend at least like an hour towards something that you do care about. And like the exhaustion from work and the unwillingness to do anything is an absolute reality. It is something that is completely and utterly unavoidable, but it is not something that can be used as an excuse. And it comes back around to what I was saying with Steve Harvey, where if you want to accomplish something that the whole world it hasn't accomplished or isn't accomplishing, then you need to be able to do something that the whole world isn't already doing. If you just go to work, come home, tend to the kitchen, watch Netflix, go to bed, you're not going to accomplish the things that this world is holding sacred from you, because you're not doing anything more than what the rest of the world is doing. You're not making any forward progression towards those goals. And realizing that in some regards is the first step for some people. And like, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I feel like for some people that's kind of just common sense. Like, you get it, you're like, okay, if I want something incredible, I have to do something incredible. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the people who don't get it, but some people just don't see that until it's exclusively explained to them. And then they're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, there's a reason why the whole world isn't doing this. It's because it's not easy, or it's not X, or it's not Y, or we have to do this for this. And so the moment you come to that realization and come to accept that is the moment you can start kind of making forward progression towards the goals that you have for yourself. And I just keep quoting quotes today. Today is the day, apparently, of quoting people. But I also saw another person on Facebook who said that they wished that everyone had the financial freedom to explore their creativity. And I really, actually, that kind of stuck with me. I really liked that quote, because I personally am someone who is fortunate enough to have the financial freedom to explore my creativity, and I am knowledgeable enough of the world around me to acknowledge the fact that not everyone has that privilege. And just like trying to figure out how to wish that upon everybody. Like, and not everyone wants the same level of success from their creativity either. Not everybody wants to be this creative genius that the whole world can recognize, but you still have the right to be creative and to express yourself in some way, shape, or form. And so just really kind of clinging to that. That's been on my mind as I sit here and do chores in front of you guys. Just a matter of like, hey, it's really easy to get caught in the time suck of just running the motions and doing the things, but like, do not let that rule your life. Do not let that become the thing that you are. Like, yes, there's things that you've got to do, and like the financial world will call it, I think it's the opportunity cost. And it's like, if you can make more money in the 20 minutes it takes you to do chores than you would be if you were making chores, then like, hire a maid. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to go out and hire a maid, but just be more conscious of your time spent and the opportunities that you could be gaining or losing with that time if it were spent in a different way. Like, I'm sitting here doing chores, and like, honestly, I don't know if I've been even talking to you guys for 10 minutes, feels more like 15. And like, in that 15 minutes time, could I have really done something serious, monumental? Probably not. But if I get to the goals that I have for myself and for my success, then yeah, it might be worth entertaining the idea of hiring somebody to do these things for me. But until that day comes, I just need to be conscious of my time and how I'm spending it, and making sure that I'm doing the most for what is needed of me. I keep thinking that I'm going to wrap this up, but I think I'm going to keep you guys going for a little while longer. making lunch now, and that's the other kind of counterproductive thing with cleaning the kitchen is like I oftentimes clean the kitchen right before I dirty it, and so it creates this horrible stupid cycle of like, oh, I'm gonna clean the kitchen before I cook something, and then I'm gonna cook something and the kitchen's dirty all over again, and it's just this never-ending cycle that seems rather pointless and frustrating. So trying to figure out a way to better capture that time spent as well, like, because I don't want to sit here and be perpetually creating work for myself. Like, that's dumb. And so what can I do to get a system down to make cleaning the kitchen more of an efficient process? And like, it sounds weird to think about cleaning the kitchen in that regards, but in some ways that's kind of the way you have to think about things. My fridge is just throwing stuff at me. Just threw a stick of butter at me. But I am making chicken bacon ranch quesadillas right now. I just had some stuff left over, and I've been trying to make quesadillas a lot lately, and they have just not been turning out. I think I'm gonna go to the classic like fold over design for quesadillas. I was trying to do the flat ones, but they just kept not turning out, and that just frustrated me. And so I'm gonna go back to the design where you fold it over and it's easier to work with because it's folded and it's not the entire circumference of the pan, and hopefully that makes for a better quesadilla. And it's just weird, the things that we do in life and how they challenge us and how we accept those challenges or use them to work towards something bigger, better, badder, whatever. And just something as simple as trying to figure out the best way to make a tortilla or a quesadilla, not a tortilla, is one of those challenges. And I made up all this chicken. I was supposed to be having chicken salads throughout the week, and I still have the means to be having chicken salad throughout the week. But this chicken was supposed to be dedicated solely to chicken salads, and I am now dedicating it to these chicken quesadillas. But that's okay. I get paid here very soon. I'm on that kind of stage where you're just kind of waiting until you finally get paid again to go out and go grocery shopping and buy all the stuff that you need. And that is like one thing, like I get paid monthly and it is just miserable. I have not figured out how to capitalize on that, because like my financial thought process before this, when I was bi-weekly, was I would just put off all of my spending until the next payday, which was fine because the next payday wasn't a whole month out. Well, now I'm seeing all these things that I want and putting them off and putting them off and putting them off, and then by the time the new month rolls around, I've pretty much already spent my whole paycheck by the time I'm on like the second week. And so trying to figure out better ways to budget is always a challenge, and I feel like a lot of people have a lot more issues with budgeting than I do even, but just simple things really. And people always complain like they didn't teach that in school, and to a degree they're correct. Like I took a personal finance class when I was in my sophomore year of high school, and like if I'm being real with myself, even if the teacher had taught us relevant things for like being a responsible adult, I don't know that my teenage self was in the right mindset to really pay attention or care about that. And so like, yes, it's a shame that they don't teach that in schools as much as they should or could, but to the same end, like I feel like the amount of things you can absorb as a teenager in that regard is pretty limited, unless you're like consciously aware that like this is something that's going to be important to you. Like, a teacher can tell you till they're blue in the face that it's going to be important, but it's not going to mean a darn thing to a teenager unless they recognize it as being important. And like, honestly, the same can be said for most adults too. And so the idea of saying that, oh, schools are to blame because they didn't teach this in school, like, that's just a glorified excuse for why you're unable to manage your own finances. And like, I did really well with mine on a bi-weekly pay structure for quite some time, and I was on a bi-weekly pay structure for years. Since 2015 I've been being paid bi-weekly, and it's not till just now that I've switched over to this monthly thing. So I mean, it makes sense that it's going to take me a little bit to get used to. I don't know how long it took me to get used to bi-weekly. Well, how many years is that? 15 to 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 22, 22. So like, yeah, 8 years. Almost a whole decade of being used to money coming in a certain style, only for it to just start coming in a different way now. So I think it's fair to be a little set back by that. But it just takes time, and eventually I'll bounce back and be like, oh, okay, I know how I'm doing this, I know how I'm doing that. And hopefully I'll start to like pre-spend my money a little less, because I've been doing that a lot. Like, before I even get paid, I already know, like right now it's like, oh, I've got to buy this, I've got to buy that, and I've got to buy this. And like, mo money, mo problems, as they like to say, is definitely a thing. You just have to be careful not to fall into the trap of mo money, mo spending. Like, I really want to buy a whole bunch of fancy camera equipment for these videos that I'm putting out. I want to go as hard as humanly possible in this 24/365 challenge as possible, so that, because like, this could very well be like my last chance at doing something on social media. After this, when I hit the landmark of 3 decades, I'm going to be looking more seriously into settling down in the more proper sense of what the world expects for people to be creating a life around, and those sorts of things. And although I don't think it's going to be impossible for me to still pursue these dreams and aspirations after I've settled down, there's no doubt that it's going to be more difficult, because you take on inherently more responsibility with these other life responsibilities. But part of me still wants to be able to pursue it with all of these things, because I get tired of people using that as an excuse. People are so prone to excuses that honestly, that is like my biggest stance in the world, is like, I hate excuses. I will be the first person to say that writer's block does not exist. It is just a lack of motivation to write whatever it is you feel that you need to be writing, or to work on whatever it is you feel you need to be working on. And I get tons of flack from parents who use parenthood as an excuse for why they aren't succeeding, or why they aren't where they want to be. And of course, I have no leg to stand on in that race, because I'm not a parent and I have yet to be one. And so they're like, oh, well, it's easy for you to be successful, you don't have kids. And from me, from the outside looking in, that just sounds like another excuse. Like, is it easier for me to do these things because I don't have the extra responsibility of children? Sure. Is it impossible for you to do these things because you do have children? I highly doubt it. And so that is kind of the biggest thing that I hope to accomplish when I do get into that realm, is to be able to show people and be like, look, I have a kid, I've got maybe multiple kids, maybe a wife, maybe not, and I'm able to do all these things. And so stop trying to sell yourself short. And hopefully, to some degree, it holds some merit to people and it sticks. And hey, maybe my eyes will be opened by the whole experience, and I will realize that it is not possible to be successful with a family. But I don't think that's the case. I do believe strongly in the idea of settling down too early, and I feel like a lot of people fall into that trap. And like, not to judge other people's lifestyles, like if that's what you want out of this life, then do it. Like, don't let some young prick tell you that, oh, you settled down too early. If having a wife and kids at a young age is what is important to you, then do it. Like, don't think for a second that I think that that's a bad thing. I just don't think it's a thing for me. And like, you need to look at a lot of the successful people around you. Like, a lot of the celebrities don't start having a family until their 30s, if not later. And that's because they've dedicated their earlier years to their own success. And the beauty of how old we live to be nowadays is it gives you kind of the privilege to be able to do that. Like, your first 20 years is dedicated to schooling, you're a minor, you're learning the ways of life. And then for me, in my opinion, years 20 through 30 should be spent trying to pursue your passions, whatever it is. And then settling down shouldn't come until 30, maybe even 35. Like, I didn't seriously start pursuing my passions until probably around 27. I've been seriously trying to do something with social media since about last summer, which would have put me at 27. And for me, that's too early or too late. Like, I feel like I should have been trying to do this from age 20. But to the same end, like, no person's journey is completely the same, and nothing goes entirely as you planned. And I burned the crap out of my tortilla, but see, that's the problem I run into with these darn quesadillas. Is just like cooking on, I don't know if it's because of my skillet or what, but cooking is so very unpredictable. And so, yes, where was I going with that? You just have no idea where your life's going, what life has in store for you, anything like that. And so, do your best to stick to your plans and do your best to do what feels like the right thing to do. And if things don't go to plan, then adjust, course correct, and try again. But I'm gonna eat my food, my severely burnt quesadillas, and it has been a wonderful time conversing with you guys and having another good conversation about chores, priorities, and all that fun stuff. I hope you guys got something out of it, and we'll do it again sometime.